Hello. In this video, we will discuss Proc Transpose. Proc Transpose is just used to transpose a data matrix. Yeah, just like in a matrix transposition. Well, first, let's introduce these two types of data. So one called wide data, the other usually we call it long data. So for wide data, typically in one line, we have only one subject, right? But we have multiple variable for similar measures. For example, so in this wide data, see, we have exam 1 and exam 2. So 2 exam scores for each student. And so for long data, one subject may appear on multiple lines. Yeah, so like this one, so Adam, 2 line, Alice, 2 line, right? So in this, we will have score. So basically, score for this variable just a record for the score exams. Yeah, but we have a separate variable, so called exams. So the value of this variable just indicate so whether the score is for exam 1 or for exam 2. In data analysis, so sometimes we may want to use the wide data, sometimes we may want to use this long data. Yeah, so here we just discuss so how can we transpose from one data to the other. The procedure we use is called Proc Transpose. Yeah, so it creates an output data set by transposing selected variables into observations. Yeah, so basically we just do matrix transpose. So this is the syntax for this variable and Proc Transpose. So this is name of this procedure. In the data option, we specify the input data, and the output out option, we specify the output data. So usually, so we may have these three statement, right? So VAR statement just specify which variable to transpose. Yeah, so if it is omitted, this procedure will transpose all numerical variables not listed in other statements. So the ID statement just creates variable names in the output dataset that are based on one or more variables from the input dataset. Yeah, so by statement just define subgroups to transpose. So when you transpose one variable to the other, so you may or may not use all of the statement here. So let me just show you an example. Okay, let's load the data. So this is grade data. Yeah. So we have the name of the students, gender, department, and the scores for exam 1 and exam 2. Yeah, so we use this proc import to load the data. Right. Yeah, so this is how the data looks like. So in total, we have 22 students. So each row indicates one student, and for each student, we have scores for exam 1 and exam 2. So only the last 2 columns are numerical variables. So let's just first look at one example. So here, so we do not have any extra statement, right? So we only have Proc Transpose, right? We specify the input data, just the grades, and so we specify an output data. So run this one. Well, so this is the output data. You can see, because we mentioned, so there are only 2 numerical variables in the dataset, right? So by default, so if you do not specify any var statement, by statement, or ID statement, right? So then SAS, so just transpose, so that or numerical variables. Okay, right? So because for the original data, so we have maybe we can put these 2 parts together. So in the original dataset, we have, this is, if only look at the number part, right? So this is a 22 by 2 matrix. Yeah, so after the transposition, we have 2 by 22 matrix. Okay, yeah, of course. So this is not what we want. So in most cases, well, so then we will have a by statement at least. So like this is the first example. So we will say from wide to long. So as we mentioned, so in this data set, so one subject for one row, and so multiple variables for each subject, right? So this is called a wide data. Yeah, so when we want to transpose from wide to long, so this is a typical example. So first, so we will have a by statement. So here I will say by a name, gender, department. Yeah, just means basically for each distinct value of this one, so then we will treat this as one subject. Okay, right? Yeah, and so then we only essentially just, so this will be a 1 by 2 matrix, and we will do the transpose and to make it a 2 by 1. VAR, right? So specifies which variable I want to transpose. Yeah, so here, so we want to transpose exam 1 and 2. Yes, and so then we will have this input and input data. So we specify the output data. For this name and the rename, I think so I will explain that in a while. Okay, so we need to sort the data before we want to use by. Yeah, because so this is something you need to keep in mind. Whenever you want to use a by statement, so then the data should be sorted according to those variables. Yeah, so because we have a by statement here, right? So then before we use this procedure, so the data should be sorted using the same by statement. Yeah, so just by, I mean, should be sorted by the same variables. So let me run this part. Okay, yeah, so I think I ignore this name option and drop this at this moment. Yeah, so then this will be much easier for me to explain. So why we need these two options. So we run this one. Well, so then this is what we get. Okay. So notice, see, SAS just calls this guy column 1, right? Yeah, but instead of name it as column 1, so I want to give a more meaningful name for this variable. For example, so I want to call it score. And so for this one, so this is a name automatically generated by SAS. Yeah, so maybe I want to call it exam. Okay. Yeah, so basically, so this is just the purpose for these two options I just removed, right? See, name equals exam. So basically, so this just specify a name to use for this variable. This option rename, right? So basically, I just want to rename so this variable core1 to score, right? So let me run this again. Well, you can see, so the name for this variable will be exam. Yeah, so this exam1, exam2, so just will be the name of the variables in the original wide data, right? Yeah, so this column 1 just becomes, I mean, the name for this column 1 becomes score. Yeah, so then this becomes a long data, right? So we have basically 2 rows for each one subject, right? I think I explained all those, right? Okay, so now let's just try to transform back. Yeah, so this is a long data, so we want to transform this back to a wide data. So this is how we do it. So the similar thing, right? So VAR score, right? So now, so we want to transpose this variable. Okay, and so still, so we will have a by statement. So name, gender, department. Yeah, because the same value of name, gender, department. So this will be treated as one subject. Okay, yeah. So yeah, because see, each of these such subject so occupies 2 rows, right? So this numerical variable here. So this is a 2x1 matrix, right? So after transpose, so we want to have a 1x2 matrix. So this ID, so what is ID? ID just, so after transpose, right? So then you need some name for the new variable. Yeah, basically, see, we have two value here, right? So then we will have a two variable, okay? So in the transposed data. Yeah, so then the level of this variable, this exam, level of this variable just will give you the name for those variables. Yeah, so this is the explanation, right? Okay. For this job, maybe I remove this one first, right? So then it will be easier for us to check. So why I want to do that? I do this one, okay, right? Yeah. So now, see, I have exam 1 and exam 2, right? So two scores for each student. So now we have another column here, right? So this column just keep the name of the variable in the original long data. Yeah, but in fact, I do not want this column, right? So this is why I will have a job. Okay. Yeah, so after I do this job. Okay. There's another option I want to mention. So for prefix, yeah, so this is specify a prefix to use in constructing name for transposed variable in the output dataset. Yeah, so let's try to see example, right? For example, so for here, so maybe I can write prefix equals my, okay. See, let's see, so what will happen? Yeah, so if we run this one, notice, see, my exam 1, my exam 2. So then the purpose of this one is just, maybe I will do this one. See, in the original long data, right? So the level of this exam will be exam 1, exam 2. So this will be the name in the resulting wide data, right? Yeah, but sometimes, so this is a legitimate name, right? Yeah, so sometimes, so this may be just numbers like 1, 2, 3, okay? Yeah, so this cannot be a legitimate name. So then you may just want to add something before that, basically add some extra characters before that, right? So to make sure so that becomes a legitimate name. Yeah, so then you can just specify that text using the prefix option. Yeah, so just like this. Okay. Right, see, when using prefix with ID statement, so the variable name begins with the prefix value followed by the ID value, right? So this is just kind of a way to construct the variable name, so in the resulting wide data. Okay. So this is the end of this video.